Hello and welcome to Formula for Success with me, two-time Monaco Grand Prix winner David Coulthard. I had to get that in early.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Typical.
And of course, Eddie Jordan. How are you?
I'm good, but I hate what you're going to say next.
Well, stop reading my script. It says here
I
in
can't,
front
you're
of me.
slagging me off already.
Let the audience judge whether this is a slagging or not.
It is.
Well, look, the facts don't tell a lie.
I
Unlike
wouldn't have
an
dragged
Irishman
this
when he
information.
tells a
I'm going to
story.
go back into the archives and see what kind of crap that you got yourself into.
May I finish my lines before you start? Okay. It says here that Jordan Grand Prix had 18 retirements in 15 years at the Monaco Grand Prix.
World record, I reckon that is.
Yeah, you were quite unlucky here, weren't you?
No, I just never put enough fuel in the car, I think, or else, I don't know. I just never felt... Monaco, the casinos and all that, I just never thought the tables would turn in my direction.
But I remember a few episodes ago, you were saying that, everything's like a gamble. Whatever you invest in, it's like gambling, going to casinos, gambling. I would have thought this was perfect for Jordan.
Well, you could say that, but I don't know whatever happened. It just possibly didn't rain enough here for me.
Yeah,
I needed rain or something unforeseen to just come to my aid. And they were the things that got me over the line first, David.
Yes.
You like to think the only reason I got over the line first is because you wiped somebody out in my favour. It's not actually always the case.
It wasn't always the case, but it was mainly the case.
No, it's not mainly the case. You're living in a fantasy world.
Okay. Well, I love the fantasy world I live in, but that's another story. Right. It's a special episode this week because we're going to be speaking with none other than His Serene Highness, Prince Albert II. Well, can you believe it? Actual royalty joining us.
Well, I failed to think of him as royalty because... David, I think we're kind of lucky enough to be in a world where sport or whatever it is, we've already said on a previous programme how lucky we are, and sometimes we have to pinch ourselves. And I think this exactly pitifies in terms of what the situation is with the Prince. Because we're lucky enough, I believe, to be able to call him our friend. And we share a lot of things and programs and hospitality and charity shows and various things together. I think he is an absolutely outstanding man, and to have him on our show and for him to agree to do this, can you imagine how easy it can be if you have the right circumstances? And I kind of doorstopped him at the cock ride a couple of weeks ago, and I asked him would he consider doing this, and he asked could he see or hear one of the programs, and he heard your dulcet tones, and he immediately said yes. He didn't say anything about my tones, but he did like quite fancy yours.
Well done, Eddie. You've definitely spent many a good night with our fine prince. Not an easy job, when you look at the amount of appearances he has to do over Grand Prix weekends, and he really is incredibly giving with his time.
Well, he is the most approachable person. I'm not just saying under normal circumstances, he is completely approachable as a crown prince, and the job he has to do. Remember, he has his subjects to look after. He's got his businesses. I think he's told us that he's got, 400 businesses or whatever to look after. It's just incredible what he goes through. And we often see him every time I look around to see one of the sort of cavalcades or one of the police guys on motorbikes, I always assume that it's him rushing to one function and rushing then to another. I think he's remarkable, and for him to give up his time here at a Grand Prix weekend, honestly, I don't think you can get better than that.
Well, I don't like to give you credit too often, but well done, EJ, in securing
Don't say that,
our
no.
audience.
I think it's you. He wanted to know, were you part of the program?
No, it was you. Was it me? Oh, it was you. Okay.
It was you.
Self-appreciation over. I look forward to seeing you on your best behaviour. And normally we hear one of your celebrity stories, but I believe you're going to tell us a little story that involves the Prince when we actually are in his presence. So without any further ado, I think we should take a quick break. And when you hear us next, we'll be up at the palace.
What a great pleasure.
Right, well, EJ, we're here in the beautiful surroundings of the palace in Monte Carlo, and it is, I think, undoubtedly the jewel in the crown of the Formula One season. And talking of crowns, we are going to be joined by actual royalty, and we're very, very privileged to have His Serene Highness, Prince Albert II of Monaco, has just entered the room. How are you, sir?
I'm fine, thank you. Welcome, gentlemen. It's a pleasure to have you. Pleasure to see you.
We're a couple of pirates here, you know that anyway. But
welcome to pirates.
Well, actually, you mentioned pirates. I make fun of Eddie because he very often goes "arr" like this, and he sounds like Captain Jack Sparrow when he does that. And I should maybe mention to our listeners at the very top of this, we of course, Monsignor, have tremendous respect for you and your title, but we're very privileged to have lived here in Monte Carlo for many years and having had the time to spend an event with you and many social times. So I think it's fair to say, and if I'm not overstepping the mark, we're friends having this conversation rather than yourself a prince, me a mere commoner. Eddie likes to consider himself the King of Ireland. But Monsignor, I fair to say?
Absolutely, and it's wonderful to have this friendly conversation here in this family lounge here in the palace, and it's a great occasion to have this dialogue and this wonderful discussion. And I hope Eddie's going to be on form because.
And I'm promised, David, that I would behave. So you may see a different side to me today.
Okay.
Yeah, best behaviour, please. Well, I think also then, if we just strip away the formality of this beautiful palace setting. I actually see us very much as three sports people altogether because yourself, sir, have been a great Olympian. Many Olympic?
5 Winter Olympic Games.
So you must be one of the most Olympians ever. 5.
Well, funnily enough, there are quite a number of people with 5, quite a few with 6 Olympics. And then it dwindles down to 7, 8. I think the most is 10 that I've seen. 10, a couple of sailors and a Japanese athlete in equestrian sports, and so that's a pretty remarkable feat. But so I'll never get there because I stopped after 5.
I'm impressed with 5. Don't you worry. I'm very impressed.
Well, I should maybe then just remind our listeners that yourself, as an Olympian, having competed there in the Winter Olympics, representing Monaco with bobsleigh, Eddie, you're a former racing driver turned team owner of the Jordan Formula One team. And, in the purposes of this conversation, I'm just merely a 2-time winner of Monte Carlo.
Yeah, well, that's something to be proud of.
I came here in 1979 as a driver, Formula 3, and that's the sum total of my expertise of going around the roads.
I didn't know that you raced here in Formula 3.
Yeah.
Did you finish
Shame
or did
on
you
you.
crash
Have you
out?
not done your research?
Well, I wasn't around at that time.
Well, that's it. Let's move on because it's not important to our listeners, and I'm certainly not important.
I'm sure we can
to
find some
Monsignor
footage somewhere.
It would be black and white, though.
So 3 amigos were sitting here. When do I go to tell my little stories?
Well, actually, Monsignor, Eddie, as you know, is a great storyteller, as the Irish are, and you have Irish heritage, and you're very proud of that heritage. And I believe you have is it in Ireland or in America? You have your mother's original house.
No, in Ireland. My mother bought the house that used to belong to her great-grandfather. So in County Mayo, just outside of Newport, between Newport and Westport. And so I just went to Newport to unveil a statue in her honor. This was last March, and it was on St. Patrick's Day weekend, and it was a wonderful occasion, and I was able to reconnect with some distant cousins there, and in fact, the 2 of the younger generations of those cousins are going to come to visit Monaco again very soon. So,
again, for anyone who's listening for the first time, Eddie Jordan is a mature gentleman. Is it fair that I say you're halfway through your 70s, or would you like me to embellish?
You are ageist, aren't you?
I'm
you
not
just
ageist.
do this all the time to me.
Eddie,
You're just trying to put anyone off who might be attracted to me in any particular way.
I'm sure you're
and
very
they're trying to
handsome
tell me that I'm
somebody.
75. I feel good about being 75.
You are in incredible shape. You actually, sir, yes, there is an event which supports the Princess Charlene Foundation, which is called the Cock Ride, which goes from Saint-Tropez to Monaco. Yourself have taken part many times. Eddie is one of the senior members of that ride, but he's one of the first to get back to Monaco. He's in great shape.
Well, I actually talk about cock because the Cock Ride only recently, and we have to be thankful to the Cock Ride because it was there that I thought about the idea of the podcast. I actually
Really?
confronted you. I said to you, come and have
Yes,
a pint inside.
Exactly.
And we had a pint, and I talked to you about, I thought it might be a nice idea if we could have a friendly chat. And this is why we're here. I think so. Well done. And he also made a promise that next year is its 10th anniversary, and we're going to have we're going to kill it. And he promised to get back into Lycra again.
Yeah.
Is this true?
Back in the saddle.
No.
Fantastic. The full rights.
Maybe if we're lucky, DC will join us too. But
Well, somebody needs to drive the support vehicle. It's very important. So
Well, I think
I'll drive the vehicle.
for
making
our
sure.
listeners, it's important what COCC means. And it's COCC.
Yes.
It's called Champagne Oyster Cycling Club.
Yes.
And it was originated by Monsignor here himself, because we used to have, in Plastan, we used to have pints, oysters, and champagne. What an amazing
At the
Sunday
end of
that
our
was.
little run, of our little...
Very little run.
No, it was at least a couple hours. So we would go back into Monaco and stop at the open air market, and there was a kiosk there with some beautiful oysters and a little glass of champagne, and that was the start of it.
And that's how COCC first started.
Yeah, well, we should actually know Monaco, for anyone who's never been here, it's a small principality. I believe it's a landmass of about just over 2 square kilometres.
Yeah.
But you mentioned oysters. There's a little oyster farm just on the harbour.
There is
in
indeed
Fontvieille.
in the Fontvieille Harbour.
Yeah, and there's other industry here as well, which I've often felt, and I'm proud to live here, of course, but we, if I may include myself in that, punch above our weight given its size. You've got more professional athletes here than probably any other country, representing across a wide and diverse group of sports. You've got industry here. You've clearly got the glamour which goes with the casino and Casino Square and the Hotel de Paris and Hermitage and all those beautiful locations. But you've also got a friend of us all, another Irishman, Harry Gibbings, has the head office of the lightest electronic bike in the world, H.S.H, and he's a good friend to us. So there's a lot of things to be proud of beyond the history.
No, absolutely. And when you mentioned industries, I mean, we have, I think we are home to over 4,000 different companies that have established either a headquarters in Monaco or actual operations. But in the industrial sector, there's electronics, cosmetics, pharmaceuticals. So a lot of some plastic components for automobiles. So there's a wide variety and a wide diversity in our industrial sector, and we're very proud of that as well.
David, are you going to ask me to start telling little stories?
Well, I was fearing this part, so if you bear with us, sir, that because as you know, Eddie's stories sometimes are true, but mostly
Very
they're just
seldom.
made up. So he's going to tell us a little tale here, I guess, and
Okay.
if
I'm
you
gonna
could
ask him-
validate whether it's true or not.
I think
I will-
you want to explain to how much in the percentage terms of this is true. So I'm going back now some years. So I decided with Marie, my wife, that we would go and circumnavigate the world. And we did so. And happy and sad, because when we came into Cape Town, we just learned of the death of the great man, Nelson Mandela. But as it was, I snuck out for a few little quiet drinks, and I wound up in this house, and there was a bit of a party going on, and there was a lot of people there, and the first person I met was Tomo. And Tomo said that, well, the boss is upstairs if you want to say hello to him. The boss being none other than His Serene Highness here in front of me, because that's what he's affectionately known as. I think, is that fair to say that you are the boss? You are the boss.
Fair to say.
I'm not being disrespectful by calling you the boss, am I?
No. I didn't instigate that title.
No, I'm sure you didn't. But anyway, we affectionately call you the boss. But anyway, we to roll this on, I went in upstairs and I said to him, look, Monsignor, I've been asked by the yacht club to place a wreath on the waypoint between Robben Island and the yacht club in the boat tomorrow morning, and I'd be deeply honoured if you would come, because it was a great moment, because the first time I met Mandela was exactly here at the Laureus Awards in Monaco when he addressed it, and it was when he made that unbelievable statement, sport has the ability to change the world. That was spoken here for the very first time.
Power to change the world.
The power, sorry, you're even more correct. Yeah, so
sorry.
embellish that.
Thank you, sir. Well, we did ask that you would keep him on track because
I'm
And
trying to
honest. Anyway,
stick to my
we
duty
went
there.
on the boat. There's a funny story towards the end.
you tell the story. We'll decide if it's
so
funny.
we had Roger Taylor from Queen, Mike Rutherford from Genesis, we had Tomo, we had you, we had Princess Charlene, and we had a very nice day where a guy called Ian Banner recited a poem about Mandela, which was very moving. But this girl, who was one of the crew, took a photograph, and she wanted a photograph of myself and the prince, and so she obviously sent it on somewhere, and then the photograph came back, and it was a very, very, very old, one of the first photographs, and it was of her mother, or her great-granny, and the prince's grandmother. Was that what it was?
Yes, exactly.
And she said, "You're not going to believe this, but they're sisters." And they were sisters. So isn't that remarkable? And you invited them here to Monaco as a result. So we met on that boat for the first time. So that was the first part of the story, which I like.
Mm-hmm.
The second one also has to do with boats. But on the 14th of March, 1958, was the birthday of your good self, Monsignor. And it so coincides with exactly the same date as my wife. And we were having a St. Patrick's Day party here in the palace for the pub, which we were very grateful that we were invited to. And we had a few little Christmas pre-drinks on the 14th. And it was Marie, myself. We had Paul McGinley, the Ryder Cup captain. And then we had Brian O'Driscoll, who had just won the Grand Slam. Harry was there. Tomo was there. And if you can imagine, David, we were in the back of the boat, and it was March, so we had the curtains pulled because it was not quite like summertime. So, do you remember this?
Oh, yeah, I do.
So the window opens, and in comes this hand, and we're saying, what's going on here? This hand came in with a present, but we didn't see who was the person behind it. So no security, no people introducing him, no one checking out whether the boat was rammed or not, or whether the bad people of Ireland were on board, because there were some bad people. But
Really?
in walked none other than himself, the prince. And that was such a great moment. And you were followed in very, very soon after that by Bono, Larry and Edge, because they were here rehearsing for their world tour. And
Exactly.
you too, by the way, for any listeners who don't know. We've got to remind our audience who you're talking about here,
so
Eddie.
I know I'm old, but listen, these are people
You two,
that
a very
I grew up
popular
with.
band.
And the only one person was Adam, who he himself was in SAS. Adam, the bass player of U2, and he was in the SAS because it's also his birthday. And we all cruised down there. I'm not sure how great shape we were in after that, but that was such a momentous thing. And that gives people who are listening that you were so in touch with reality, with the people, and you're the people that are here. And I just want you to say, first of all, is that remotely true? And the other thing is the ability that you have to integrate with people and to be a friend of theirs and to go to all of the functions that you do go. I personally don't know where you get the time from, and I can promise you we applaud you for that.
Well, I thank you, and yes, it is true. But I was very happy to do that. It was complicated because it was kind of between events for me, but I wanted absolutely to celebrate a fellow Pisces and the wonderful. Your beautiful wife, who's much nicer than you are.
Well, everyone says that, and I'm trying to believe it may be true.
Hey, I've got an idea. If this is okay.
Yeah.
We're in Monaco.
Mm-hmm.
There's this amazing sporting event called the Grand Prix.
Is there really?
There is indeed, and it is. I think it was, if I'm not wrong, one of. I think it was only behind the 100-meter final and the World Cup final as the most viewed sports event globally.
Yeah.
You must be incredibly proud. You've been born into the Principality. You have been a sportsman. You have resided and viewed this Grand Prix.
Mm-hmm.
It means a lot to the Principality.
Oh, it does. It's our our premium event, and it's you cannot imagine the number of people around the world where when I travel, how many people talk to me about the Grand Prix, and that's for a lot of people that's their the one time of the year, those who don't come and visit us, that's the one time of the year where they do get to see views of Monaco, and where they do, get some feeling of what not only F1 is all about, and part of the history of F1 is really anchored here in Monaco because of the Grand Prix and the rally, of course. But and it has such an impact on people. It's amazing. I was once going. This was in 2009 when I did a tour of Antarctica, and I went to one of the research stations there, and it was a Korean station, where the only two things that they, we talked about the science that was being done there and everything. It was very interesting, but the two things that they told me that they knew about Monaco was first the Grand Prix, and second the football team, because at that time we had a Korean player on our team, and so it was amazing that they really followed that. Followed football, of course, but that they followed the Grand Prix even in a remote station in Antarctica.
Why do you think, for such a small place, it has become the Grand Prix that every driver wants to win? Every team principal wants to join the gala dinner. It's one of the only races where there is a gala reception after the race, which I was lucky enough to go there when your late father was still alive and be hosted when I won the Grand Prix the first time. Is it that royal connection that makes this such a popular Grand Prix, or do you think it's the craziness of the challenge? Because the streets are pretty tight.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a combination of things. And correct me if I'm wrong, gentlemen, but yes, it is the difficulty of the track, and it is challenging, and it's unforgiving if you make a mistake, and it's unlike any other track that you need a different setup for the car, and but it's the whole atmosphere. I think it's the fact, of course, that it's the premium. I'm saying that word a lot, but it's one of the only. Well, now there are more city races than there used to be, but it was kind of the first one of its kind, along with, in France there was Dijon, but not necessarily on the F1 circuit. And so it's that the challenge, but also of course the atmosphere, the glamour, the fact that most of the and again, please correct me if I'm wrong, but that's where most of the sponsors entertain their their clients, and so there's that whole connection of, and then of course my family's involvement with the event and with everything that goes on around the event, that makes it, I think, a unique experience for everybody.
What did you set out? Because many years ago, people thought about Monaco in a certain way, mainly on the financial side, whereas now, as David has alluded to, you have all the top tennis players, you've got all the top Grand Prix players, you've got a multitude of sports people. And this, for me, the world sporting capital in my, when we go to Melbourne, they always like to think that they are. But actually, they're not even close to what you've got here. So do you consider yourself as being, the venue or the residence or the home of world sports people?
No, absolutely. And it wasn't necessarily consciously, but
Happened.
But it did happen over the years. Of course, it started with a lot of Grand Prix drivers, then tennis players, then cyclists, motorcycle riders, and a wide variety of different sports, and so athletes, of course, came here, and all these people came here for certain benefits, of course, but also because they know that the weather's pretty nice year round, and that there are great training facilities, and they're great opportunities to for them to have a nice quality of life and a good family life as well.
Well, that leads me very conveniently to a man that had the vision to not come here once he'd established his career. He came here when he was born. Charles Leclerc,
Yes, absolutely.
Monegasque driver,
Yeah.
racing for one of the most iconic brands in motor racing, Ferrari.
Yeah.
He is very much part of the normal society here. His mother used to cut my hair, and
Not very well. If I may say.
no,
Long time
yeah, it was a
ago, I
long
think.
time ago. It doesn't grow anymore. But
Okay, I'm sorry.
how proud are you of knowing that one of your own, and Monaco is there's more than 30,000 people live here, but there's about 9,400 when I checked, actual Monegasque
Yeah.
citizens, and he's one of them.
No, it's a tremendous pride and joy for us. I mean, I've been following him since he was 14, since he won his first titles in go-kart racing, and he went through the ranks to the Ferrari Academy, and he's incredibly talented. He's a wonderful young man, great values, great personality. He's really doesn't shy away from conversations. And he is every time I listen to him in a post-race interview, he's very objective, very critical about his performance. I think more so than most drivers, and he's had some great successes. Of course, he's had some tough times as well. But we really hope, and we're hoping that one day he will not only win here in Monaco, but that he will win the big title. Patience is also a great quality to have, even if you're driving extremely fast around tight corners. But I'm sure his time will come. And
I hope so. I do.
If he has the right car, of course, and if he has the right team around him. But
That may then conveniently lead me on to one more question about the Grand Prix. There was a little bit of delay in the most recent contract getting signed. Were you at any point concerned that that would mean that we could imagine not having a Grand Prix here? But it seems now you've managed to secure the future of motor racing here in the Principality.
No, absolutely. Yes, there were some discussions that were a little bit difficult, but that's all been sorted out. We're in theoretically a 5-year contract, but there'll be an assessment after 3 years. There were some points that needed to be clarified. They were clarified. It took a little longer than was anticipated, but I think we're in a very good place, a very good dynamic, and a very good working relationship with Liberty Media and the F1 people, and it has to be that way because, of course, we have no intention of not being on the F1 circuit, and so I'm enjoying a very good relationship with everybody, with Stefano Domenicali and everybody else involved in those negotiations, but also in the F1 world.
I have to ask you because I spent nearly all my time in Formula One under the stewardship and the leadership of one Mr. Bernard Ecclestone. And I'm just trying to figure out, did you have as good a relationship that we all thought that you did have? Bernie and you were okay?
Yes, absolutely. He was, he's a man with an incredible personality, and I still run into him occasionally. But and he was, he could be very demanding and very, very tough sometimes. But I think we had a very good understanding and a very good relationship.
Well, sir, I think at that point it's the moment for Eddie and I to thank you sincerely for your time. It's been
you have
fantastic.
a meeting somewhere?
Well, no, it just I could see security looking at me, so I thought we'd overstayed our welcome at the Palace. But it's been absolutely fantastic
Thank you. It's been a great pleasure.
Be hosted here. We are proud citizens of the Principality here,
Sure.
and we thank you for your time, and we wish you continued health and happiness in your future.
Thank you very much, and all my best to both of you.
So
see you
just
very soon.
before we leave, because there's always a little addition.
He
when
always
I'm-
does one more.
No, it's not a question. You did say that most, not all, but most of my stories were pretty true.
Most of them were pretty accurate. Of course, there's
There you go, David. I told you they're not all made up.
I'll never hear the end of that now. So at this point, I think we have to say one more time.
Absolutely. Thank you
Your
very
Serene
much.
Highness, thank you very much for your time. And normally I would remain seated because I'm with Eddie, but in your honour, I stand and thank you, sir.
Oh, do I do the same?
Thank you.
I don't know the protocols.